vivo X300 Ultra starting at $6,999, OPPO Find X9 Ultra starting at $7,499, Xiaomi 17 Ultra Leica Custom Edition $7,999. These three Android imaging flagships all use the 5th generation Snapdragon 8 Ultimate Edition, and the prices are basically in the 7,000 won range. In this episode, we won't beat around the bush and will answer a very straightforward question. If you care a lot about the overall imaging capabilities, which one of these three would you buy for 7,000 yuan without losing out? You can also type your answer in the public chat to see if our thoughts align. I will analyze based on my experience which three different paths each of the three companies chose, where each path leads, what the costs are, and why they made these choices.
Let's cut to the chase and officially begin.
Let's start with the main camera. From this point, the differences between the three are significant. The vivo X300 Ultra and OPPO Find X9 Ultra share a Sony LYT 901 1 and 1/12 inch 200 million pixel large sensor. This is the flagship sensor Sony provided to phone manufacturers in 2026. Xiaomi 17 Ultra takes a different path with a 1-inch Light Hunter 1050L 50 million pixels plus Logic root, but with the same LYT 901. Vivo and OPPO have produced different products. OPPO has a 23mm standard main camera with an f1.5 aperture, while Vivo has a 35mm humanistic focal length with an f1.8 aperture. The focal length difference is 12mm, which doesn't sound like much, but the actual images captured are two different things. 23mm is the default optical focal length for main cameras in the smartphone industry, while 35mm aligns with the natural perspective of the human eye. I won't elaborate on this common knowledge. Vivo's choice of 35mm is a judgment based on product philosophy. Vivo believes that users should move towards the image rather than having the lens encompass the image. 35mm captures a perspective closer to what the human eye actually sees, making the composition more focused and giving a greater sense of presence. OPPO chose 23mm to first meet the need to fit everything in, which is also the default requirement for most smartphone users, offering a wider field of view suitable for capturing a complete scene in one shot. For this generation, Xiaomi chose a 1-inch Logic. It's not about having higher specs than OPPO or Vivo, but using the large sensor and Logic technology to expand the dynamic range limit. In actual tests, using each brand's native main camera to shoot the same tree, Xiaomi's sharpness is the highest, with the bark being very sharp and clear, almost eye-popping. When comparing the three images together, the visual impression isn't very good, but if you look at it individually on a phone, the Xiaomi version is actually the most pleasing. OPPO's color reproduction is the closest to the naked eye. At that time, it was cloudy, and OPPO didn't forcefully brighten the image, instead making it look slightly grey. This restraint in not brightening is actually OPPO's deliberate tuning. The image may not be immediately pleasing, but it is closer to the real scene. Vivo's performance in resolution is quite outstanding, with branch details being particularly clear when zoomed in, and the shadow details are relatively complete. The tone captured has a slightly more atmospheric feel than what the naked eye sees. If you think the differences in the main cameras aren't that significant, then in the ultra-wide angle, the differences among the three are even greater. In terms of hardware foundation, it's also clear at a glance. Vivo uses the LYT 818, which is a 1/1.28-inch large sensor. OPPO is 1/1.95 inches, and Xiaomi is 1/2.75 inches, so Vivo's sensor is obviously larger. Testing the same little duck, the differences completely align with the hardware foundation. Xiaomi uses algorithms to forcibly brighten, making the initial brightness the highest. But when zoomed in, the smudging in dark areas is also the most noticeable. OPPO's sharpening is restrained, preserving the texture of sculptures, the veins of leaves, and the details of the ground soil clearly at the cost of the overall image brightness being lower. Vivo's resolution performance is the most outstanding, with the texture of the sculpture's paint surface in close-up, the lines of flowers, and the veins of distant leaves all clearly discernible. It also has the highest color saturation, and the details brought by the large sensor are reflected in the image. So, considering both the main camera and the ultra-wide angle, the paths of the three brands are already very clear. Vivo takes a hardware-first approach with a focus on realistic perspective. Vivo aims to make every scene in daily life work well, doing the basic work solidly without shortcuts. OPPO takes a stable main camera approach with differentiation in telephoto. OPPO has placed almost all the highlights of this generation on the 230mm telephoto lens, with the main camera taking a stable and error-free route, and the color tuning is closer to real scenes. Xiaomi, on the other hand, follows a route of exclusive optimization for special scenes. In daily use with the main camera, you can hardly feel the presence of Logic. Xiaomi's imaging advantages only emerge in specific scenes. The telephoto is where the three companies have the sharpest divergence in their approaches this time. And with the current flagship models, we must mention the imaging kits when discussing telephoto. So in this section, we'll first talk about the bare telephoto capabilities of the three companies, and the differences after adding accessories will be discussed in the imaging kit chapter. Let's start with OPPO. The Find X9 Ultra is equipped with a 70mm 200 million pixel and a 230mm 50 million pixel dual periscope telephoto. This 230mm is currently the longest focal length for an Android bare machine. Other brands reach about 100mm at most, while OPPO has reached 230mm in one step. Above 230mm, there is ISC on-chip zoom, which can directly push to 460mm equivalent. The optical quality is better than pure digital cropping. In actual tests, OPPO's 230mm bare machine can clearly capture the outline of the gantry crane and the text texture on the distant factory's container. OPPO has made the 230mm exclusive focal length truly usable, which the other two brands' bare phones cannot achieve. The vivo X300 Ultra uses an 85mm 200 million pixel periscope telephoto. OPPO has reached 230mm, while vivo only reached 85mm. This is the difference in route selection. Vivo's judgment is that 85mm is also a focal length for humanities, the best segment for portraits, street scenes, and landscapes, and it's the one used most frequently in daily life. So Vivo concentrated its hardware resources on the 85mm lens, achieving the first 1.25-inch large sensor periscope with 200 million pixels and CIP 7.0 level optical stabilization. In Vivo's decision-making logic, there is also a hidden advantage, which is the large sensor with 200 million pixels providing ample cropping margin. Cropping digitally from 85mm to 100, 110, or even 120, the image quality degradation remains within an acceptable range. In practical tests, the image from the native 85mm and the cropped 100mm shows almost no difference. Only when cropped to 120mm does slight detail loss begin to appear, which means that Vivo's 85 to 120mm, the most commonly used mid to long focal length range, is highly usable. As for the ultra long focal length beyond 230mm, Vivo's choice is to rely on teleconverters. In practical tests, using each brand's native mid to long focus to shoot the same river view, Vivo's performance in resolution is quite outstanding. The ripples on the water in the foreground, the mottled railings of the bridge in the midground, and the outlines of the windows on distant buildings are all basically clear and sharp, with no obvious smearing or blurring. In terms of stabilization, Vivo's CIP 7.0 has the highest data in this group. Under handheld telephoto shooting, we also made a comparison, and in everyday scenarios, all three brands perform well. Finally, let's talk about Xiaomi. The Xiaomi 17 Ultra takes a third path, offering 75 to 100mm of 200 million pixels continuous optical zoom, equipped with Leica APO certification. Both Xiaomi and Vivo use a 1.25-inch 200 million pixel telephoto sensor, with focal lengths in the 85 to 100mm range. The difference lies in two things. First, Xiaomi has true optical zoom with 200 million pixels optically output at each focal length, and the lens physically moves within the lens group. Vivo, on the other hand, requires cropping. Although the 200 million pixels provide a large margin, resulting in minimal image loss, it is essentially still cropping. Theoretically, at the same focal length and in the same scene, the image purity of true optical zoom will be better than digital cropping. This is Xiaomi's advantage in the optical path. The second is Leica's APO certification, which is the first APO mobile phone lens in the Leica optical system. APO addresses the issue of dispersion. When shooting backlit or strongly lit objects, including high contrast edges, ordinary lenses may show purple or green fringes, but APO lenses can basically eliminate this dispersion. However, Vivo has also done Zeiss APO certification, and in terms of lens quality, actually all brands are quite good. After discussing the bare phone telephoto, looking ahead, you can see that each brand's approach to telephoto products has also extended to the choice of video specifications. OPPO remains the extreme player, with its extreme recording specifications being 8K at 30 frames per second plus OLOG 2+3D LUT burning, making it the most complete 8K workflow in 2026. But 8K, the threshold for everyday use is really high, only suitable for that small group of people creating professional short films. Vivo's video specifications, on the other hand, take a different path. Full focal length 4K at 120 frames, 10-bit log plus Dolby Vision plus 422 encoding. Vivo Log also supports ACES workflow, with the emphasis on full focal length, where all three lenses can shoot with the same specifications, and the color science is completely consistent. Moreover, there is a professional video pro mode and a cinematic mode, which are also suitable for relatively professional video creators. In terms of hardware, they also collaborated with SmallRig to create a professional video expansion kit that includes a cage, handle, filter adapter, backplate, and so on. Xiaomi's unique feature is LogVic 4K60. It's the only one that can enable LogVic in video. In scenes with extreme dynamic range like fireworks, stage, and flames, Xiaomi can capture details that the other two cannot, following the path of optical purity. In the night scene segment, the differentiation among the three brands is also very sharp. We filmed the same night scene light show with red koi, distant maple leaves, and grass in the foreground. The lighting conditions were complex, with high contrast, dark areas, and warm tones. Xiaomi's first impression is the brightest, with vivid colors. The saturation of the red koi and maple leaves is maximized, and the warm tones are also very prominent. This direct output style is particularly appealing when posted on social media, which also reflects Xiaomi's algorithmic prowess. The cost is that Xiaomi, for this direction, has significantly brightened the dark areas, resulting in a noticeable smearing effect in the image. The details of the leaves at the top of the English letters background fall behind the other two when enlarged. As for OPPO's night scene, we tested it for a long time and found that it is at a medium level in almost all dimensions. Noise control is good, and there is basically no color noise in the dark areas, nor are there overly smooth details. However, the resolution and detail sharpness are not as prominent as vivo, and there is room for improvement when enlarging to view the highlight textures. The color tuning is rather flat, with the red koi and maple leaves appearing darker, and the direct output is not as pleasing as Xiaomi. The impression from vivo is that the overall light sensation of the image is quite good, with the best resolution performance. The text on the left, the veins of the maple leaves, and the texture of the foreground grass are all clearly discernible, without a smudged feel, and the image purity and noise control are also well done. In the dark areas, there's no forced brightening, no color noise, no graininess, and the light and shadow layers are relatively natural with restrained algorithmic intervention. The downside is that vivo's overall brightness is relatively low, and at first glance it is not as bright as Xiaomi. You need to zoom in to notice the details preserved in the dark areas. Another key scene in night mode is the high contrast. We also switched to this port night scene with crane lights and densely packed street lights and buildings. This kind of scene has very high highlights and very dark areas, making it a challenging scenario for testing dynamic range. Xiaomi's algorithm strategy is the least restrained, as the colors of those distant point light sources are completely preserved and not compressed into a white patch by the algorithm, retaining the color information. Although the Telephoto does not have LAFIK, Xiaomi is still quite good in this aspect. The downside is that the light beads in the photos tend to blur together, and noticeable glare can be seen. This is the shortcoming in this set from Xiaomi. OPPO, on the other hand, goes to the other extreme, with the algorithm actively suppressing highlights. However, this time, the algorithm overdid it, turning the distant bluish headlights into white, erasing both the color information and the highlight. As for vivo, it takes a middle path, neither strongly suppressing nor enhancing, resulting in relatively natural image layers and stable resolution performance. The downside is that the direct output isn't as eye-catching as Xiaomi, and you need to zoom in to see the details in the dark areas clearly. So, when it comes to night scenes, choosing which one is actually about what style of night photo you want. If you want something that looks good at first glance for social media, then Xiaomi is definitely the choice. If you want to take photos that can withstand magnification and have light and shadow layers, choose vivo. OPPO is in the middle, standard and steady, with no weaknesses but also not many highlights. If you're not picky about style or scene, buying it won't go wrong. As for color, the question of which one has more accurate color reproduction is actually a false proposition, because all three are pursuing stylized tuning. In this segment, we're not comparing accuracy, but rather the style each of the three companies offers. Vivo goes for an engineer-like sophistication and romance, with Zeiss providing color direction that leans towards being realistic and objective. The colors are not heavily rendered, and the color grading aims for a textured restoration.
This generation's vividness, richness, texture, and light chasing not only don't resemble saccharine photos, but the light chasing mode's palette is also used by many to mimic the style of Li Guang. Vivo has also put more thought into portrait stylization. OPPO, I think, goes for a makeup artist's elegance and refinement.
Hasselblad has tuned 9 master film styles, ranging from light to rich, covering all bases. OPPO pursues a color style that is not exaggerated, but very tasteful. I actually like it a lot. Xiaomi, on the other hand, has the most distinct style, following a photographer's German flavor. Leica's classic and vivid colors are richly saturated, and it also has Leica's exclusive Leica moment. The M3 black and white combined with the M9 CCD smoothness is where this generation's Leica holds the strongest emotional value. Choosing which color depends on your visual preference, and I believe there's no right or wrong. For portraits, we also conducted practical tests, and the three brands made different choices. The core issue is whether you choose beauty or realism. Xiaomi prioritizes beauty with the heaviest skin smoothing, almost removing skin texture and pores. The release of the person appears fair and rosy, with a default background blur set to the maximum, making it the most pleasing at first glance. This is Xiaomi's algorithm catering to the aesthetic preferences of social media platforms. The cost, however, is that when you zoom in on facial details, you might feel the mask-like effect is somewhat severe. OPPO, on the other hand, chose realism first, with neutral and accurate skin tone reproduction, almost no excessive smoothing or whitening, and fully preserved skin texture, making it the one that restores the model's most authentic state among the three. This less retouched approach is definitely an advantage for users who dislike the mask-like effect and seek relatively true-to-life recording. The direct output is slightly plain, but it retains the model's original appearance and has some beauty enhancement. In terms of portrait photography, vivo still strikes a balance between attractiveness and realism. The skin smoothing is more restrained than Xiaomi, optimizing the skin's appearance while preserving its texture without an obvious fake look. I think vivo makes the most skillful trade-offs among the three. Unlike Xiaomi, which smooths the skin to the point of looking fake, and unlike OPPO, which can appear a bit flat, straight out. By the way, let's talk about hair cutout. Vivo's hair strands are also quite solid, with forehead wisps and sideburns clearly distinguishable. Xiaomi's blur is extensive, and the cutout is very clean. OPPO occasionally shows traces of the algorithm. After discussing all the previous dimensions, we have reached the final showdown, which is image nesting. This segment is about the new dimension in the 2026 Ultra. All three companies have made imaging kits, but have taken three different routes. Vivo's generation of kits is more complete in the extended focal length route. The G2 lipstick 200mm teleconverter, 999 yuan, 153 grams. For street photography and concerts is basically sufficient. The G2 Ultra is like a big lens with a 400mm teleconverter priced at 1,999 yuan, weighing 248 grams, mainly used for long-distance concert photography, moon photography, and bird photography. We conducted a real test in the port container scenario, and the English letters on the containers were clearly discernible, the texture of the container was completely preserved, and the structure of the distant gantry crane and the layers of steel were also very clear. This level of detail density can indeed only be unlocked after equipping with a telephoto lens. Vivo's product approach is very clear, which is to use a teleconverter to complete the ultra-long focal length, forming a complete solution for medium, long, and ultra-long focal lengths in humanities. Now, this generation of OPPO set is also catching up. Hasselblad made a set of Hasselblad teleconverters for OPPO, but I feel that this generation of OPPO's teleconverters actually has two sets, one built-in and one external. The external set, the Hasselblad Teleconverter Ultra, has a 4.3 times magnification, and when mounted on the 70mm 3x telephoto lens, it becomes approximately 300mm. But to be honest, I think for this product, the significance of this teleconverter isn't very great. After all, it originally has 230mm and the built-in ISC already covers up to 460mm. As for Xiaomi's professional imaging kit in this generation, it includes a handle, a two-stage physical shutter button, an independent recording button, a zoom dial, and a 67mm filter adapter ring. The entire set of accessories offers a physical operation experience very close to that of a portable camera. However, Xiaomi's kit has a clear trade-off as there is no official option for an external teleconverter or telephoto lens. At a time when Vivo, OPPO, and Huawei are all making significant efforts in teleconverters, Xiaomi's kit lacks in focal length expansion. So in the realm of teleconverters, Vivo has done the most complete and serious work. In terms of the quality, connection stability, and overall experience of the teleconverter kit, it is indeed the industry leader. Concerts basically all use Vivo. There's no dispute about that. From the year 2025, with the first generation X200 Ultra teleconverter to the X300 Ultra here, G2 plus G2 Ultra, Vivo has accumulated two generations of products in the teleconverter path. OPPO this generation, although compared to the previous generation, has progress, but 300mm, whether in terms of size or focal length, is not as good as Vivo. Xiaomi in this generation did not implement an external teleconverter solution, leaning more towards Leica sentiment and a camera-like operational experience. So if you want the focal length extension brought by a teleconverter, then Vivo is currently the most reliable option. Talking about this, we've almost covered the imaging dimensions of the three companies, but there's one thing I want to delve into further, which is the collaborations. Vivo with Zeiss, OPPO with Hasselblad, Xiaomi with Leica. These collaborations all seem similar, with major domestic phone manufacturers teaming up with century-old German optical brands. But if you dig deeper, you'll find that the collaboration routes of the three are different. Zeiss provides Vivo with craftsmanship standards. Since 2020, Zeiss has established joint laboratories with Vivo at both the German headquarters and the Dongguan Vivo headquarters. This time, the outer ring large glass and the inner ring optical elements on the X300 Ultra all feature different generations of Zeiss coating solution. Zeiss provides collaboration more on the hardware craftsmanship side. On the other hand, Hasselblad gives OPPO a focus on color thinking. The collaboration between Hasselblad and OPPO mainly focuses on the software aspect. The so-called Hasselblad Natural Color essentially refers to the color tuning of Hasselblad software as presented on OPPO phones. On the hardware side, it was only with the Find X9 Pro that Hasselblad first appeared in jointly developed Telephoto with OPPO, marking the beginning of hardware involvement. However, Hasselblad's color aesthetics are actually the most prominent label of OPPO's imaging. The recognition of master film by ordinary users might be more important than the depth of hardware. As for what Leica gives Xiaomi, I think it's more of a textbook in terms of brand and aesthetics. Xiaomi has obtained some tangible things in hardware, but the collaboration between Xiaomi and Leica is more about brand depth. Leica sought Xiaomi for overseas series manufacturing, and the Leica version of the Xiaomi 10 Ultra also received authorization for the Leica red logo for the first time. These are matters of brand assets. The brand premium Leica gives Xiaomi is the strongest among the three, so the depth of collaboration among the three differs. Zeiss focuses on craftsmanship standards, Hasselblad on color aesthetics, and Leica on brand narrative. Three collaboration methods, three values.
Now that the video has reached this point, I have an observation I really want to share. I thought by the year 2026, smartphones would have become so similar that each brand's ultra-premium models would be very much alike. But you'll find that this generation's three ultra-premium models have each offered completely different solutions, which I think is truly a good thing.
Because by the year 2026, hardware convergence is unavoidable, with SoCs all being Snapdragon 8 Gen, sensors all being those mainstream models from Sony and Samsung, and screens all being LTPO adaptive refresh rate. Under the major premise of hardware convergence, the fact that the three companies can still take three completely different paths in imaging means that we as consumers truly have choices rather than having the same formula packaged into three brands. So back to the most straightforward question. Spending 7,000 yuan on these three, which one is the least regrettable purchase? If you want a straightforward answer, my answer is the vivo X300 Ultra. In multiple dimensions, vivo performs solidly, with stable overall resolution in both the main and telephoto cameras. It finds a balance between attractiveness and realism in portraits, and the focal length options are the most complete among this generation's choices. If you're not picky about the approach, vivo is the most consistently strong option. But if you pursue extreme specifications for professional short films and are an enthusiast working in 8K, then the Find X9 Ultra with its 230mm bare machine telephoto plus 8K log and Hasselblad color aesthetics, OPPO is the most complete on this professional path. If you are a Leica enthusiast pursuing optical purity and a camera-like operational experience and like Leica's emotional colors, then buy the Xiaomi 10 Ultra Leica edition. This generation's Leica emotional value and camera-like experience are exclusive to Xiaomi. All three routes are valid, but before choosing, it's most important to understand your own needs and what type of user you are. Mobile imaging has already started moving towards a professional route. The limitation on mobile imaging is no longer the specific parameters of the main camera, telephoto, or ultra-wide angle, but rather you, who have no shooting skills and keep picking on phone flaws. Okay, that's all for this video.